Good evening. The Taliban's advance across Afghanistan is unprecedented. The hardline Islamists who once harboured Osama bin Laden are gaining ground fast as they sweep through the country. As ever, it's the civilians who are paying the highest price. More than 1,000 have been killed in recent weeks, and many, many more have been pushed from their homes as they're caught up in the fighting. A US-led military coalition to oust the Taliban first began in 2001 following the 9/11 attacks, but now most of the foreign troops have pulled out. 454 British Forces personnel or MOD civilians lost their lives. Nearly 2,300 US troops have been killed, and more than 120,000 Afghan military, police and civilians have died in the conflict. As the Taliban continue to capture territory, questions are being asked about what was achieved over the past 2 decades and what the future looks like for Afghans. Our correspondent, Yogita Limai, reports from the capital, Kabul.
Desperation on a scale not seen in decades. Thousands have arrived in Kabul in the past few days. People who had homes and jobs, who led dignified lives, forced to leave everything behind. Angry that they've been left on their own. No government, no humanitarian agencies. Malaka's sons are in the army. She says only the poor go to the battlefield while politicians watch.
We've seen this camp grow by the hour. People have been coming in from different parts of the country as more and more provincial capitals, more and more cities are being taken over by the Taliban. Many of those we've met here have run once, twice, multiple times, and now they've come here to Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. From here, they say, there's nowhere else to go.
To get here, they've survived dangerous journeys, past Taliban checkpoints and active front lines. Gulalai says they moved from one place to another for 3 days before they got to Kabul. She has 4 children. The youngest is 2. Ten-year-old Khalida was in school taking her exams when the Taliban attacked. Many had to leave their dead behind to save their own lives. Shir Mohammad's parents died in the violence. Many here have fled from Kunduz in North Afghanistan, which fell to the Taliban on Sunday. Today in Kabul, we bumped into these men who we'd met 4 weeks ago in Kunduz. Then, the city was a refuge for tens of thousands of people who'd fled fighting in villages. Now we've learned that in recent days, mortar shells landed in these camps. We don't know what happened to the people we'd met there. Most of the north of the country has been taken over by the Taliban now. Those who've escaped to Kabul are staring at uncertainty. Fears that the capital too could fall within weeks. Yogita Limai, BBC News, Kabul.
Taliban fighters now control around 2/3 of the country after making rapid advances against Afghan forces as foreign troops withdraw. The Red Cross has warned that Afghanistan's second city, Kandahar, is being rocked by intense fighting between government forces and Taliban militants. They have already taken the areas that you can see here in red. In those areas marked in yellow, the Taliban is threatening, but neither side is currently in overall control. Our Afghanistan correspondent, Sikandar Kamani, has been given rare access to newly captured Taliban territory and has sent us this report, which was filmed by Fred Scott. It contains disturbing images.
New territory, new weapons, all captured in this unprecedented Taliban advance. Caught in the middle, Afghan families right across the country.
How can you justify all this fighting when it's causing the deaths of thousands of ordinary Afghans, thousands of ordinary Muslims?
جنگ دی ځکه دا جانب هم وژل کیږي هغه جانب هم وژل کیږي نو موږ کوشش خو دا مخکې ما درته ویل چې موږ کوشش کوو چې خلکو ته ضرر ونه رسوو نو بیا خو خامخا جنگ دی چې وژل کیږي هغه به راځي پکښې.
You're the ones who started the fighting here though.
زموږ جوړ نظام خو ما مخکې درته ویل چې افغانستان جوړ نظام و دوی رااله او په افغانستان کې چې اسلامي نظام نه وي چې هر نظام یې موږ نه پرېږدو موږ په خلاف مقاومت کوو.
Shortly after the interview ends, the sound of helicopters. The Taliban are still vulnerable to government airstrikes. This is Balkh, a town with ancient roots, thought to be the birthplace of one of Islam's best-known mystic poets, Rumi. Now it's under Taliban control.
We came through here a little earlier this year. Back then it was still under government control. Now it's one of around 200 district centres taken by the Taliban.
Schools are open here, though in other Taliban areas, girls are reportedly prevented from attending. The market is still busy. Women have apparently been allowed to come here without male companions if they need to. But elsewhere, Taliban commanders have reportedly banned them. Haji Hekmat is a local Taliban leader. Despite what I've been told, he insists they haven't made the burqa compulsory.
You said that women have to wear the burqa, the chadar. That's right, isn't it?
No. مونږ اسلامي ټولنه دا وعظ او نصيحت کوو زور زبردستي نشته خو څه وایو چادرې په سر کې ستر فرده وکړي شرعي حجاب وکړي دا مو وایو مونږ ته خو زور زیاتی نه دعوت د لارې نه.
What happens if someone doesn't want to wear it?
نو چې وانه غوندې مشکل نشته ورته خپل شرعي حجاب به کوي شرعي حجاب خپل سر به پټوي سر او حجاب به کوي نور معنا دوی ته زبردستي نشته دی.
I heard that members of the Taliban here caught one man listening to music and to punish him made him walk for 2 kilometers without any shoes on until he fainted as punishment.
The next day, a young woman was killed close by, allegedly for wearing immodest clothing. The Taliban denied involvement. They seem to want to play down their more hardline views internationally, but at times are in tune with some conservative Afghans. Many here praise improved security. Accompanied by Taliban fighters at all times, it's hard to know what residents really think. Having already captured many rural areas and some border crossings, the Taliban are now pushing in on Afghan cities. Half an hour's drive away in Mazar-e-Sharif, the government are still in control. There's a greater sense of personal freedom here that it's hard to imagine the Taliban accepting. Many fear the Taliban want to resurrect their practice of brutal punishments. They insist they were not responsible for this flogging, supposedly filmed last year, but they did recently hang 2 child kidnappers in public. On the steps of the government's old courthouse in Balkh, the Taliban's legal system is in force.
For many, the Taliban's brutal form of justice is what scares them the most about the group. But for others, they at least offer a swifter resolution than the notoriously corrupt government courts.
The judge here says he's never ordered serious corporal punishment and that there's a system of appeal courts. But he defends stoning adulterers and cutting the hands of thieves.
Many people here in Afghanistan and around the world would be horrified.
جامع جهانی او طرفه قضاوت کوي تاسو ګورئ دغه نه په ارتباط باندې چې کوم مرضونه راځي نه په صلحه او زراو خلک په قتل رسیږي د امراض په نتیجه کې مهلک مرضونه دي همدغه را د غلاو د ډاکو د چورو چپاول په نتیجه کې په زرهاو خلک تباه شو آیا دا به ګورئ چې د یو کس لاس پرې شي او ټول خلک کې امن راشي نو خلک محفوظ شي.
The Taliban are capturing new territory on an almost daily basis. They're still facing fierce resistance, but they vow to install what they term an Islamic government. If that doesn't come through the stalled peace process, they say, it will come through more violence. Sikandar Kamani, BBC News, Balkh.
Well, let's go to the Afghan capital now, and our correspondent Yogi Dinamai, who is there. As we saw in your report, so many people fleeing now to Kabul, but can the capital hold?
Well, it's a very unpredictable and volatile situation, and on the ground it's not looking good. The US press are reporting today that intelligence officials in Washington, D.C. are telling them Kabul could fall within 30 to 90 days. That's unexpected, but so is what's happened here over the past week. The Taliban so quickly gaining control of provincial capital after capital. In some areas, we know that they walked in and took over without a fight from the Afghan forces. Afghan soldiers in some areas were not paid, were not given ammunition. Sometimes even something as basic as food was not supplied to them. Morale is low among the forces here, and the government recognizes they need to change that. Today, President Ashraf Ghani went to Mazar-e-Sharif, which is a very important city for Afghanistan. And Afghan forces say they're also fiercely fighting to defend other major cities in this country.